Thank you, Star. Siyabonga. Good evening, Zimbabwe. You are listening to Studio 7 from the Voice of America on Tuesday, June 16th, 2015. And this is The Connection on LiveTalk. I'm Tungamili Nkomo.
And I'm Tatenda Gumbo.
Tonight, we focus on the Day of the African Child, also known as June 16.
Everyone, let's get connected as usual on Facebook and Twitter using the hashtag #TheConnection. Our Facebook page is VOA Studio 7 and our Twitter handle is @Studio 7 VOA. We can also get things going on our WhatsApp number, and that number is +1 202 465 0318.
And to get live on air here at Studio 7, you can give us a call at the following number. That's 001-202-619-2077. That number again, 001-202-619-2077. Give us a call and we will call you back.
And of course, we're streaming live on the internet. You can find us right now at voazimbabwe.com, voashona.com, and voandebele.com.
Again, this is your number one youth forum, The Connection, coming to you live from the Voice of America in Washington.
The Day of the African Child is commemorated each year today, and this year's theme is accelerating our collective efforts to end child marriage in Africa. It also coincides with the 25th anniversary of the adoption of the African Children's Charter. Late last year, the AU launched an Africa-wide campaign to end child marriages, and right home in Zimbabwe, the Zimbabwe National Statistics Agency indicated that last year 31% of Zimbabwean women were involved in marriages or unions before reaching the age of 18.
June 16 was first commemorated to remember the 1976 uprisings in Soweto, when a protest by school children in South Africa against laws compelling them to adopt Africans in schools ended in a bloodbath. And tonight, the day is commemorated to raise awareness around children's rights across the African continent. So tonight, we ask, what are the advancements we have made as children of Africa since the inaugural June 16 in 1991, and what are the challenges young Africans are still facing on the continent? But first, before we proceed, here is a legendary song from Sarafina that reminisces of the Soweto uprising.
Freedom is coming tomorrow. Get ready, mama, prepare for your freedom. Freedom is coming tomorrow. Get ready, mama, prepare for your freedom. Freedom is coming tomorrow. Yeah, oh, you will listen to mama. Yeah, oh, you will listen to mama. Yeah, oh, you will listen to mama.
That, of course, is the legendary Freedom is Coming Tomorrow from the South African musical Sarafina by Mbongeni Ngema.
Very reminiscent indeed. It brings me back to my younger years as a young African child.
Growing up in America, right?
Well, you know, both Zim and America.
I know. Lichona njani Zulu kandaba ikudibana kohlelo lwalamhlanje uhlelo lwabasakhulayo The Connection. Lamhlanje sikhangela ilanga le Day of the African Child elaziwa njalo ngokuthi June 16. Ilanga elaqala ngo-1991 lisungulwa i-Organization of African Union, Unity rather, esi-African Union kathesi benanza ilanga lokubulawa kwabantwana besikolo eSouth Africa ngo-1976 lapho abangena esitaladeni besola umthetho owababamba ngamandla, umthetho kahulumende wobandlululo owasithi kumele bafunde ulimi lwesi-Afrikaans. Bangena-ke esitaladeni khonapho bafa abantwana abaningi kumalanga alandelayo baze bafa bedlula 176. Yilo udaba esingalo lamhlanje kusukela ngo-1991. Leli langa-ke lalamhlanje linanzwa emazweni wonke e-Afrika, ikakhulu sikhangela ukuthi amazwe e-Afrika enzani emizameni yokuthuthukisa amalungelo abantwana, ikakhulu kwezemfundo la wonke amalungelo wongo tatena ndutara bateri ukuthi nyaya rimudariro nasi inyaya ye day of the African child apo tinozwa kuti zuwairi raka parurwa muna 1991 ne Organization of African Union Unity as a way of honoring vana vechikoro vakanga vaurawa muna 1976 nehurumende yevadzvanyiriri yeapartheid kuSouth Africa. Vakanga vachiratizira vachishora mutemo wakanga uchivabata kuti vadzidze rurimi rweAfrikaans. Saka kubvira muna 1991 zuva iri rakucherechedzwa musi waJune 16 gore rega rega tichitarisa kodzero dzevana vechidiki muAfrica.
And tingandoziva kuti nhasi wataura nemwe munhu handiziva kuti ndiani, but wandikuziva kuti une special guest or special interview. Tiuziva kuti wataura nani nhasi?
We have the commander-in-chief and that's Julius Selo Malema, the president and commander-in-chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, that youthful party in South Africa. I caught up with Mr. Malema earlier and asked him what this day means to him. Mr. Malema, welcome to Studio 7 Live Talk, The Connection.
Thank you very much.
Today is June 16, Mr. Malema. What does this day mean to you?
This is a very important day in the history of our country, where we take a moment to reflect on what happened in the history of this country, where the previous regime killed innocent young people who were demanding to be taught with their own languages so that they can excel. And therefore, this day means that we have to continue the legacy of the 1976 generation and fight for a total liberation of black people in South Africa.
Is that spirit still there, the legacy that you are talking about, the 1976 legacy?
The spirit is still there. The youth is determined to fight and become better people. The youth is determined to live up to the expectations of the 1976 generation, and that was reflected today by the participation of young people in the events that were held across the country to commemorate the 1976. And the spirit and the determination of the youth today actually reminded us of the 1976 determination and forward-looking type of an attitude by the youth of that generation.
How much would you say the country has done in so far as addressing children's rights and youth empowerment? Well,
the South African country and government has failed the youth in a very significant way. There is no clear program on youth development. 70% of those who are unemployed are young people, and there is no clear training and education system that seeks to remove them from the chains of poverty and unemployment, including, amongst others, illiteracy.
How about other African countries? How would you rate them?
Well, many African countries are doing very well with regard to literacy program. We are all battling as African continent, but we know for a fact that other countries have done very well in training their young people, in equipping them with a proper education system, and other African countries actually continue to provide skilled professionals to the South African economy. And that's why I'm saying they've done relatively well compared to South Africa.
You are a member of parliament and a leader of the Economic Freedom Fighters. Your party is full of very vibrant, youthful people. Would you count that as one of the achievements made by South Africa to advance its youth?
Well, we are an organization that serves as an alternative to the downtrodden masses of our people and to young people who feel let down by the government of the day. And that's why the EFF is by and large constituted by young people. And it is this party that is going to grow and become the future of South Africa because it inspires hope. It carries a message that tomorrow will be better than today.
Your last word, Mr. Malema, what would you want to say to the youth in Zimbabwe?
The youth of Zimbabwe must take an active part in deciding what future they want. It is the youth which have always been in the forefront of revolutionary activities, and the youth of Zimbabwe is no exception to that. They had to organize themselves and they had to chart a way forward because they are the ones who have an appointment with the future and no one else.
It was a pleasure having you on our show, The Connection. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ndade.
That there was the Commander-in-Chief of the Economic Freedom Fighters, Julius Malema. Very interesting individual indeed.
Definitely there, and a wonderful message to the young people in Zimbabwe on their role that they have to take. But of course, in Tunga today, we're talking about the Day of the African Child. And as we mentioned earlier, its theme, which is focusing on ending child marriages. And the African Union says that child marriage is a complex issue that is driven by many factors in many different societies. And Africa is among the second highest rated child marriage areas in the world after South Asia. And some of the long-term effects that the AU says that young girls who are put into child marriage, they deal with health effects, education effects, psychological, emotional, and mental. But of course, we have a panel of guests here who will be delving into so many issues. But let's go on ahead and start off with our first guest, Ntunga, who can talk directly to this year's theme. So we'd like to introduce Beatrice Sawajge. She is the director of Roots, which is Real Opportunities for Transformation Support based in Harare. Beatrice, thank you so much for joining us on The Connection this evening.
Thank you, Tatiana, for having me.
And for those of you who can see her, she's live on Skype, so thanks for that wonderful connection there. And Tunga, go ahead.
We also have our second guest, Ms. T, Hilary Musarurwa. Hilary, good evening.
Good evening to you. Thank you for hosting me.
Thank you. Tangena Beatrice. Beatrice, zuva iri rakakosha sei kumwana weZimbabwe, kumwana weAfrica?
Zuva reDay of the African Child izuva rakatikoshera sevana vemuZimbabwe nevana vemuAfrica. Nokuti izuva rakaonekwa rakakodzera kuti tiwane tichipemberera tichirangarira the Soweto uprising. But also izuva rakatikoshera in the sense yekuti rinoita kuti tireflecte kuti since the time pakaitika the uprising in Soweto, chii chaitwa chekuti vechidiki vawanike vachiwana kodzero dzavo dzakaita sekodzero dzekuti vange vachidzidza, kodzero dzekunge vasingafoseredzwe kuti varodzwe vachiri vana vadiki, kodzero dzekusarudza yatingati sexual and reproductive health rights pachirungu. Saka zvinotiita kuti tinge tichipemberera tichitasa kumashure kwatakabva, like checking in the rearview mirror, but also tichitarisa kuti going forward ndezvipi zvataachiva, zvii zvinoda kuti zvinge zvichigadziriswa. Tichitasa nyaya especially muZimbabwe zvakangofanira zvanga zvitaurwa Honorable Julius Malema pavanga vachitaura nyaya dzeunemployment, kuti hongu tinoona kuti education levels, nyaya dzekukurudzira kuti even vasikana vechidiki vange vachienda kuchikoro through the affirmative action tinoona kuti dzanga dzichiwanikwa dzichisimudzirwa muzimbabwe, asi vechidiki vaenda kuchikoro tiri kuona kuti nyaya yekuwanikwa kwemabasa inyaya iri kushungurudza vechidiki vakawanda muzimbabwe. Tikada kutarisawo kuti kodzero dzakaita even political participation of young people and economic justice in Zimbabwe, we see kuti pane kusiiwa kumashure kwevechidiki pakagoverwa minda. Unoona kuti vechidiki vazhinji havana kunge vachiwanikwa vachiwana even muparticipation muparliament chaimo. Tinoona kuti vechidiki hatisi kuona participation yavo yakanyanya. Tikada kuongorora even zvinoitika muSouth Africa kuti we find vana honorable Julius Malema vachimira pamberi vachimiramira sevechidiki munyaya dzematongerwo enyika, asi muZimbabwe hatisi kuona zvakanyanya izvozvo zvichiitika. Saka izuva guru ratinopemberera sevechidiki, asi rinotirangaridzawo zvizhinji zvatinofanira kunge tichiita kuti vechidiki vange vachabudirira munyaya dzematongerwo enyika, munyaya dzezveupfumi nezvedzidzo.
Tinotenda Beatrice Ramba wakabata uri parunhare Miss T. It's all yours.
Hillary Pindakwe Papo, just looking at the importance of this day to you as a young Zimbabwean, but also as someone in Africa.
Well, I think the day is important because it has been set aside. And we really appreciate what those before us did in 1976. But also as we reflect, I think we need to look at serious issues here. Kuti tiri kupemberera zvakaitwa nevamwe, tiri kurangarira zuva iri, asi tine zvishoma zvatinokwanisa kufara pamusoro pazvo kuererana nemararamiro ari kuita vechidiki muAfrica nemuZimbabwe yese. Nyaya iripo ndeyekuti mikana yevechidiki iri kuvharwa. It's so sad kuti pakadaro so tine vakuru vari kusiya legacy isina kunaka kune vechidiki. Vari kusiya vechidiki corruption, failed states, and I mean we have a lost generation that we have. Like I said, opportunities are being shut out for them. Right now we've got a nation that's full of vendors. Vakazara vanhu vari kungotengesa, and tozovhunza kuti remangwana revechidiki rakamira sei pakadaro. It becomes difficult to really say we've got something to celebrate. We are celebrating a history, but looking ahead for the future, there's nothing to really celebrate on.
Uyakhuluma lapha uHillary uthi akula lutho olokuthakazelela really nxa sikhangela isituation eZimbabwe. Ukhangele amathuba abasakhulayo ukuthi bakhona ukusithuthukisa kakho. Ukhala njalo ngokuthi abadala abaphethe intambo mani ilegacy abayichiyela abantwana bethu abasichiyela yona thina njengabontanga ilegacy embi kakhulu, ilegacy yobuhuqulozi, corruption, into ezingalunganga. Ukhuluma ngelizwe ukuthi ungakhangela kathi sakula msebenzi abasakhuleka kabalayo imisebenzi, iloba ngubani kalawo amathuba okuthola imisebenzi eZimbabwe. Yikho abantu abaningi sebephila ngokuthengisa, umuntu wonke selivenda.
And that's true. Beatrice, if you can come in there, economic factors in Zimbabwe, how much is it playing as an issue for this practice of child marriages? In Zimbabwe in particular, some would say that it's not a concern, but there are some who say the economic situation has led parents and guardians to send their young girls to be married. What's your response there?
The economic situation is really a huge factor, and it's really contributing in a great way in the child marriage cases that we are seeing in Zimbabwe. What we have observed is that child marriage in Zimbabwe is not as is in places like, say, Ethiopia, where young girls are taken kicking and dragging to an older man. We have seen girls actually opting also to get married as a way of escaping poverty. And also in some hotspots like the Apostolic Sect, we have also seen older men offering parents, some economic gains for them to sell their girl, and that older man gets married to this young girl. We have seen business people taking advantage of young girls. We have seen politicians who have, the economic and political muscle taking advantage of young girls, raping them, and at the end of the day, the parents do not seek legal recourse as they have some economic they have economic gains that they can get from that very powerful person. So the economic factor is really playing a huge role in contributing to the increase in child marriage in Zimbabwe, as we have seen, like I said, girls also opting to get into marriage as they lack alternatives. So it's something that really needs to be addressed. And like my brother also mentioned, that we've seen a lot of vendors also coming out in Zimbabwe, especially in the Harare CBD streets. And some of those people are young girls who are trying to make a living. And, it's a risky working environment where they are with older men, with Mawindi and all. So it's not a very conducive environment for a young girl to grow up in. So chances of her being raped are really high, and she's at risk of being forced into a marriage or being lured into a marriage, a coerced marriage.
Thank you there, Beatrice. Tatenda silo munye njalo guest yethu. One of our guests, uDisen Bajila, umkhokheli wabasakhulayo ku-MDC ekhokhelwa ngumnumzana Walshman Ncube. Siyakwamukela kuhlelo Bajila.
Yebo, ngiyabonga ukwamukela kuhlelo manje sempose ngaphelelwa isikhathi.
Siyabonga ukuba lathi baba. Ililanga lika June 16 lamhlanje ilanga eliqhakathekisa umntwana wezwekazi leAfrika amalungelo akhe. Ungathini ngela kusasa lomntwana weZimbabwe ngendlela aphila ngayo lamhlanje ukhangela konke okumelwa yileli langa?
Ngingathi umntwana weZimbabwe namhlanje nxa sifika ku June 16.
Hello,
ukhona mnumzana Bajila?
I think we might have lost him there.
Yeah, we had a disconnection there. But, I had just asked him, what his take on the future of the Zimbabwean child is, looking at the current situation.
And maybe we can throw that to Hillary, as he had alluded earlier to that issue. Hillary, if you want to come in there and answer that same question.
I'm sorry we lost my brother, Decent. And I think I'll agree with what Beatrice has been saying, that a number of young girls are getting into early marriages because of the economic situation. So I think for us to really look at how we can turn around the future for our youth, we need to really look at initiatives that are proactive. Besides focusing on the government supporting us, I think individuals and non-governmental organizations need to come in. We need to really invest in training and education. We really need to build more skills and also look at providing for financial support to youth initiatives. I think there has to be deliberate moves towards engaging youth and promoting opportunities for them. Whether this situation we have where we just have to wait upon government to really come to the fore, it's only going to be one excuse that they give. We don't have any money. We've got a liquidity crisis, so where are we going to get the money from? So I think these initiatives need to also come from other sectors as well. Community-based training, I'm sure young people can also mobilize each other within their communities and start somewhere. I think you need to start somewhere. Then other players can come in and try and support. This is the only way we can really turn around the situation. If we really have to say there is hope for the future, then it's all in our hands. I think it's in the hands of the youth there. Like Chief, the Commander Malema said that the youth have to really take it upon themselves. The youth in Zimbabwe have to take it upon themselves to make sure that they start doing something to turn around the situation.
Siyabonga Hillary qhubeka ubambile. Mnumzana Bajila usukhona njalo ecingweni? Hello Bajila? Yebo Bajila usukhona ecingweni?
Yes.
Okay, ungaqhubeka baba, bengikubuzile ukubana ungathini ngelakusasa lomntwana weZimbabwe nxa ukhangela okwenzakalayo kathesi lokumelwa lilanga lika June 16.
Ngingathi ilanga lika June 16 limele ukuthi lokho kuthiwa yi-symbolism ye-power imelele ukuthi abantu abatsha amandla isibanga esinganani ukuthuleni izinto emazweni abaphila kiwo ebantwaneni baseZimbabwe kulezi zinto ezimbalwa abasakhangeleyo ukuthi ngase guqulo and thina-ke njengenkokheli sithi namhlanje kakube lilanga lapho abazimisela khona ukuthi bazaziguqulela bona zonke lezi zinto sikhuluma izinto ezinjengokuthi kule ndawo imisebenzi ayitholakali abanye baze baphume emazweni bayehlukunyezwa kwamanye amazwe anje South Africa sibazile behlukunyezwa kathesi ngesikhathi sezenophobia zonke lezi zinto into kumele ukuthi abantwana beZimbabwe basakhulayo basukume bazimele njengabantwana baseSoweto abaka 16 June 1976 zinengi izinto sikhuluma ngokusela kwemisebenzi sikhulunywa ngokuhlukunyezwa ngombangazo sikhulunywa ukuthi abantu abalutshwane la okutholakala khona izihlalo zokuthi kwenziwe lokho kuthiwa decision making ukuthatha izinqumo mayelana ngengqubela phambili yelizwe zonke lezi izinto sokumele ukuthi abantwana abatsha baseZimbabwe basukume bazimele umsebenzi wabantwana abatsha baseZimbabwe umkhulu ukwedlula lowo abaka June 16 1976 ngoba lapha eZimbabwe sikhangele ukuthi kulalokho kuthiwa i-unfinished business yama generations asedlule kakhulu bese mbusweni wazi
sesilahlekele njalo uBhajila ucingo lwakhe kalwenzi kuhle kodwa kungasenani sizama njalo ukumchuma kuthwasi lomlaleli Miss T.
I think tinemtheleli ari parunare Mkhoma Samuel.
Yes, makadi yenyu.
Tiripo makadi muri kupi Mkhoma Samuel?
Yeah, ndiri ku Boxburg.
Okay, pinda yenyu muchirongwa. Chikutaura nezuva Day of the African Child.
Yes, ndinonzwa ukuthi ndakateerera pachitaurwa pachirongwa zvishwa tinonzwa kuti zuva ranhasi iri tofanira kurikoshesa sezvo paine vana vakaurayiwa vakawanda nevasveta simba saka tinofanira kunge tiziremekedza sezuva ranhasi ino tinofanira kuva inge tichivanamatira mumachechi umo taitonamata neusiku hwese wanhasi.
Interesting point of view there from Samuel. Tinotenda zvikuru Mkhoma Samuel.
Sure, ndinotenda ndapinda muchirongwa kwanhasi.
Tinotenda. Thank you.
Okay.
And Ms. T, we are fast running out of time. Why don't we wind things up for our radio listeners?
Of course, Ntunga. And that means now we'd like all our radio listeners to find their way to voazimbabwe.com, voashona.com, or voaindebele.com, where we are continuing our stream and we'll be taking callers and, of course, talking to our guests. And who are we joined by the way?
We have Beatrice Savage of the Real Opportunities for Transformation Support. And we also have Hilary Musarura, Director of Penya, Practical Empowerment Plus Network Youth Association. And we, of course, have the youth MDC leader, Decent Bajila.
And of course, as usual, we'd take a quick short break and we'll be right back to our listeners and our guests. Hold on the line. We'll be coming right back to you to continue our conversation on the Day of the African Child. I'm Tatenda Gumbo, hoping all our radio listeners a wonderful evening.
Aberetio bagithi sifikile isikhathi engisizondayo esokuthi lilale kodwa sikhona ebulenjini siyaqhubeka ngohlelo abale internet lingayikatshana.
and good evening for those of you who have been joining us. And of course, for those of you that are just joining us, you're watching Studio 7 from the Voice of America in Washington, D.C. on Tuesday, June 16th. This is LiveTalk The Connection, and we are discussing today the Day of the African Child, also known as June 16th.
And of course, abasanda siqhuma sikhona apha emsakazweni westudio 7 kuhlelo The Connection, uhlelo lwabasakhulayo. Lamhlanje sikhangela ilanga lika June 16 elokukhumbula abantwana ababulawa ngohulumende wobandlululo eSouth Africa eSoweto ngo-1976 beze bengene esitaladeni betshengisela besola umthetho wababamba ngamandla kubana bafunde ulimi lwesi-Afrikaans. Saka ndiyonyaya irimu dariro nasi tatenda tine magesi elu.
Definitely. Let's go right back to them. Tobotanga newe Beatrice, looking at my themes akamboitwa 2014, 2013, for example, last year they did the child-friendly and eco-free compulsory education throughout Africa. Then 2013 Ndovaita eliminating harmful social and cultural practices affecting children. Do you think that African countries have the capacity to implement these themes and move forward, in particular looking at the issue of child marriages throughout Africa?
I personally think they have the capacity to implement these themes, but there is a lack of political will and resource allocation towards such themes. Because you find that they come up with these themes or they ratify international and regional instruments, which they do not follow through in terms of allocating resources. For instance, I'll just give an example of the African Union campaign, which is going to be launched in Zimbabwe. As a country, we do not have a plan yet as to, after the launch, what is going to happen. What other activities are we going to do post the launch that ensure that we provide practical solutions to the challenges that are facing girls in Zimbabwe. Even in terms of education, we know the solutions. We know what is causing child marriage. We know the solutions. We know but there's not political will to really go there and attack and confront such practices kumapostori, because most probably they constitute a larger number of the electorate. Saka vanenge vachityika kuti tikavanganisa tikavanyondora in times of elections, we will not have people to vote for us. Because zvakaita say even education, we know what needs to be done. Vana vakaita nhumpa muviri, tikavadzinga kuchikoro, it means kuti mwana yeye upenyu hwake watokanganisika tikamuforce into marriage. So the solutions we know, the challenges we know, but pari kungoda that political will to ensure that we address issues of child marriage. Even right now, we're still in the process, like our constitution stipulates that the legal age of majority is 18, but we still have the customary law that is silent on the age at which a girl can consent to marriage, and the Marriage Act that says a girl can consent to marriage at the age of 16. So these two laws are not in tandem with the Constitution of Zimbabwe, which is the supreme law. Saka, that lack of political will is also shown in now we're trying to get the laws harmonized with the Constitution, but the process is taking longer. Saka, the capacity we have, but there's need for political will. If there's that, political will at that national level, with the government really saying we need to criminalize child marriage, really we can end the practice in Zimbabwe.
Thank you there.
Tidzoke kwauri Hillary isusu tiri nepfenyuro yeveruzhinji, and I know thousands and thousands of people are listening right now, and those people might include the Minister of Youth, and probably the President of Zimbabwe. Hillary, what would you want to say to Mr. Mugabe himself as the Commander-in-Chief and President of Zimbabwe, as well as the Youth Minister, about children's rights, youth empowerment?
Well, I think what I might say is, if we really want to address the issue of early child marriages, ngatonei what is causing this. The issue of unemployment, the lack of opportunities. If President Robert Mugabe and the Minister of Youth can address these issues, vakakwanisa kuita maprograms, hatisi kuda maprogram akaita sana Korera Inkunza Youth Fund, which was abused, and those who were deserving did not get any help at all. My programs are made right to the grassroots. Who are suffering in abject poverty. If they can also deliver on their promise for 2 million jobs, Ataka Votera Muna 2013, then I can say they've done well. As it is right now, I think our president also needs to make deliberate steps to arrest corrupt officials. We've got ministers who are very corrupt, and corruption here has become so endemic that it destroy economy. If these things can be addressed, we can also be addressing the factors that are forcing early child marriages. We can also address the causes of unemployment. There's also need to look at education. I'll emphasize on the issue of education or training. Recently, there's been debate on whether we should be using smartphones in schools. Honestly, in this day and age, Minister could say we would have introduced smartphones. Yet we've got countries that have done away with textbooks in schools, and children just go to school, no smartphone or no tablet, and they have their lessons on their tablet, and they go on with their education. By the time we catch up, the rest of the world will be leagues ahead. So what I would want to see is a situation where we embrace technological advancement, allow or push for schools to become paperless. Let's also push for financial support to my youth. But there's never been any discussion on a bank for the youth. Because my youth are going to do an amari my bank, my bank are they are still as a risk. So we can have also a policy that looks at how we can effectively provide my youth with my services are tailor-made for them. Youth don't have security and collateral. So I want to know where my bank. You can contact with drivers and think of
thank you Hillary. Ndine chivimbo chekuti vaMugabe vanzwa na minister we-youth empowerment vanzwa mashoko ataurwa naHillary musarurwa kuti aiwa gadzirai nyaya yemabasa, gadzirai nyaya yehuori.
Ntunga tine muteereri ari parunare. We have anonzi G9 wakadi hako G9 tiripo pano tikutaura neissue yeDay of the African Child. Pinda hako muchirongwa.
Ndakutenda. Ndikuona kuti mayuth kodzero dzedu dziri kuti kana vaDzimbabwe vanhu vanyanya kudzidza vawanda. Ndinoona kuti kudzidza kwakaita mabasa hatina. Then mayuth kuti uende unotsvaga basa vanotaura kuti no iwewe unotsvaga basa qualification ndaonawo akairasei. Then unotaura kuti ndaenda qualified akairasei handiti. Then pabasa paya mari anokwanisa kukupaka haikwanisa kuti iwe kwanisa kuti idziriritsirawo nokuriritira chi mhuri yako. Kaini ndanditaura kuti ndichaona kuti mukati menyika yatine Zimbabwe vaMugabe nevaministers kana kuti nevamwe vakuru vakwanisawo vaonawo kuti Zimbabwe tagadzirisawo zvinhu zvaenda zvakanaka kubudikidza neikonomi yedu kuti tikwanise kuchiwanawo mari semayuth tikwanise kuzwawo ma40 years tikwanise kungereka sei tagadzira upenyu hwedu kuti tino vana vedu ramangwana rakanaka. Panopo ndozvinhu zvakanisa kungoitawo muZimbabwe kuti ikonomi yedu igadziriswe tikwanise kungochikwanisa tatekutira data yavamwe vasikana vari kuinza kutizira vono kuti hakuna mabasa ndanonge solution yankusara yega ndate kutizira. I think ndozvinhu zvanokwanisa kungotaurawo mukati mechirongo ichochi.
Ko
mukoma G9 kuti ma-politicians aacte aite zvido zvenyu ndokuti munge masimukawo sevechidiki mavataurira zvekuita kunge zvakaitwa nevechidiki vekusouth africa muna 1976 handizvo?
But njengoba ma-politician manje ari kuwanza corruption. But munhu angatata kuti mhuri yake ikwanise kuchirarama, iye akati akavakatira chipinze pachigaro vanhu vomupinza, then iye kuti adididze semayutika pamwe achiri kukwanisa kutokwanisa kuwana mari inoramisa iye mhuri yake chete, iye hachatarisi vanhu vangati kupinza pachigaro kuti adidze mayuti acho.
Aiwa, tinotenda mukoma G9, thank you so much. Muri kupi? Muri kuHarare?
Ndiri kuHarare, patinodzi mukwekwe.
Kuri sei ukwekwe uko?
Akuraita mhere kuri kweWashington DC.
Tokiyakiya kunoko.
Ndizvozvo saka ini ndozvakazikwating Zimbabwe corruption ndeni yakanyanya kuti nyika yedu isabudirire kwezvo corruption. Munhu anokwanisa kuona kuti awana mari araramisa mhuri yake ere achita sezvikurarama kwa vamwe vanhu kuti vakuraramawo sei.
Aiwa, tinotenda mukoma G9 nekupinda muchirongwa chedu.
Ndinotendawo neniwo zvakare nekupinza muchirongwa.
Thank you.
And of course, Tatenda, we have our news recap.
Of course, as usual, as we tell everyone every Tuesday, we are also giving news daily in Shona, Ndebele, and English. So let's take a moment to...
The African Union wraps up its 25th summit with renewed commitment to the upliftment of women. Transport Minister Obet Mpofu defends government plans to expand tolls from highways to the city. And the youth in Zimbabwe and around Africa remember the day in 1976 when more than 100 South African students were shot and killed while protesting for a better education.
Vatungamiri venyika dzemuAfrica votsidza kupedza dambudziko rekuroorwa kwevana vasati vabva zera. Bato reMDCT rinoti SADC neEU ngadzipindire munyika sezvo vanhu voziya nenzara nekutadza kutonga kwebato reZANU-PF. Rimwe sangano rinomirira vanotengesa mumigwagwa reQueen of Grace Zim Asset Trust rinonzi ramanikidza vanotengesa mumigwagwa muHarare kutenga makadhi aro kuti vakwanise kuwana nzvimbo dzekuzotengesera zvinhu.
Ibandla le-MDCT lithi selizabamba amalunga alo ngamandla ukuthi asayine isivumelwano sokuthi engasuka ebandleni engasasebenzisi igama lophawu lwebandla. Lokhu kuza ngemva kokuqeqebuka kwamanye amalunga asuka legama lokuthi MDC. Uhulumende uthi useqalisile ukukhulumisana lamakhansili emadolobheni phezu kokwakhiwa kwama-toll gates emadolobheni ukwenzela ukuthi athole imali yokulungisa imigwaqo. Uhlelo lwamasiko lokuphila kwabantu sizwe okwenziwa i-Amagugu International Heritage Center eMatopo emizameni yokuvuselela amasiko esintu.
Siyabonga ntatheli izindaba zethu Gibbs Dube Marvelous Mhlanganyahuye lo Blessing Zulu ngokusipha inhloko yezindaba zalamhlanje.
Todzokera duku Beatrice, just coming back to you, talking about, this issue that you are working hard for in Zimbabwe. But generally speaking, what are some of the other challenges that young women in particular are facing throughout Africa outside of this issue of child marriage? Because of course there are some who are, avert that situation there, but then are also facing other challenges. What are you seeing on the ground?
What we are seeing on the ground is the general social exclusion of young women from developmental processes that happens in countries, where you find that they face double discrimination for being young and for being women. Even for political participation, like I mentioned earlier, you find that we have very small representation of young women, even when resources are allocated. Issues like to do with education as well, access to education. We still have communities that do not place a lot of value on the girl child, and we have those gender inequalities still being still perpetuating in our communities. And you find that the girl child is not the favorite child to be sent to school. So that child preference is still happening in our communities. And issues that I talked about to do with education. you also find some basic challenges that young girls go through, such as access to sanitary wear. Here in Zimbabwe, we are still facing such a challenge where you find girls missing school for up to say 4 days because they cannot afford sanitary towels. So those are some of the issues that we have where we don't have gender sensitive policies and initiatives that ensure that the girl child is really being put on the forefront. We had cases where we were interacting with students from tertiary institutions, and that they are using family planning pills as a way of regulating their menstrual cycles, so that they do not have their menses whilst they are at school, as they do not afford sanitary towels. So such kind of cases are some of the challenges that the girls in Zimbabwe are facing, and that they need to be addressed. And you see that there's also limited prioritization, even at national level, where you find that the Ministry of Women's Affairs, Pakaitwa, the budgetary allocation, received the least amount of resources that were allocated to all the ministries, yet there are a lot of issues that are affecting young women in Zimbabwe.
Tinotenda Beatrice Ramba uri parunare. And of course, we are still trying to reconnect with MDC Ngube, youth leader Decent Bajila. But now I will go back to Hillary. And Hillary, let's go back to South Africa. Let's look at the role young people are playing, politically. And I want us to compare that with the situation in Zimbabwe. Look at the Democratic Alliance, the biggest opposition in South Africa. They recently, elected Musi Maimane, and of course that's my man. He's a nice guy, very vibrant youth leader. He's now the leader of the Democratic Alliance. He's very young. He's my age. Let's also look at the EFF, Julius Malema. Of course, we spoke to him earlier. Julius Malema is my age too, and he leads that party, which is giving the ANC a headache day in, day out. And let's look at Zimbabwe. We don't have any, opposition political party per se being led by a youthful person such as the two gentlemen that I've already mentioned, Mr. Malema and Mr. Musimaimane. Doesn't that say something about our passive nature as the youth in Zimbabwe?
Well, Mutinda, I would love to agree with you that there is a passive nature of youth in Zimbabwe, but there I would disagree. The youth are not passive. It's just that we've got all the leaders who do not want to pass on the baton. We've got leaders in all political spheres. I think whether opposition or the ruling parties, we've got leaders who do not want to allow youth to go on into the flow of their parties. I think this is something that would be unheard of if it were to happen in Zimbabwe. That any of the political leaders right now would step down and say, look, let us bring on board someone who is below 40 years to lead us. This is the challenge that we have. I think our youth are capable. Our youth have got leadership qualities. Our youth have got the intellect, the expertise. And our youth are doing well in other spheres. I mean, if you look in the business sectors, you've got young people who are doing exceptionally well. Why? Because they've been given opportunities there. But on the political front, we've got leaders with a syndrome of Andiende, and they will hold on to the button until the last day. Until and unless we have a renewal of the mindset, human leaders, Akatanga Zinu, who can easily hand over to the younger generation, we have a problem there. Because we still holding on to this mantra that youth are leaders of tomorrow. But when is tomorrow ever going to come? Will it ever come for these people? I think some young people have died with the hope leading a political party or leading some political dispensation, but our political leaders in Zimbabwe are just not prepared to let go. This is the
Can I
challenge.
also quickly jump in there?
Go ahead.
Yes. Also, I think it's a little bit unfair to compare the youth in South Africa and the youth in Zimbabwe, because I think the economy plays a critical role in how it influences young people to show up and really stand up and for their rights. In South Africa, you see the likes of Julius Malema and my Mane. The economic context that they are operating in is very supportive of freedom of expression, freedom of affiliation to any political party. Yet in Zimbabwe, it's a bit different, where if you try and stand out and voice out, like the case of, I'll give an example of Itai Dzamara. We understand he was abducted. By who, I really don't know, and I cannot comment to say whether it's the government or it's whoever who took him. So you see, it's different economic and political context that we're talking about. So, like my fellow panelists said, I don't think the youth in Zimbabwe are passive, but it's being cautious and being really sensitive to the environment that they are mobilizing and organizing around. And also you find cases where young people in South Africa, like, they have resources to actually go out and execute. I remember when we wanted to do a march on xenophobia, we actually had to write, on cardboard boxes, on spoon paper. Some people who wanted to come for the march against xenophobia to go to the South African embassy didn't even have transport. While youth in South Africa have, their campaigns and they're mobilizing and they're organizing, that's very much supported. So I don't think that youth in Zimbabwe are passive. It's just that we are organizing and mobilizing in a different context. And we also have other bread and butter issues to worry about every day, unlike a youth in South Africa, where here in Zimbabwe you have to worry, where am I going to get my 5 rand ekombi ekuendesa kumba or come back kubasa tomorrow, or where am I going to get my next meal? So it's those different contexts that we are operating in, not necessarily that we don't have active youth in Zimbabwe, but also it's just a call and a challenge to young people in Zimbabwe to really stand up and show up. We should not use it as an excuse to say we are not participating or we're not showing up because of these economic and political challenges that we're facing, where we don't have the freedom of expression. Like, the freedom of expression is not guaranteed.
Okay, let me bring in a decent Bajila there, of course. I think we can speak to this also. Can you answer the question, or maybe help us unpack the question, why it's impossible or hard to find a youthful leader in Zimbabwe leading a political party? Hello, Decent? Hello?
Hello, Bajila, ukhona ecingweni? Bajila's phone is a nightmare, but I'm told you have a caller on the line.
We do have a caller on the line. We have Kenneth. How are you, Kenneth?
Hello, how are you?
Very well. Where are you located?
No, in Durban.
Okay, let us... thank you for joining us on The Connection, of course, and give us your input on this issue, Day of the African Child, and what you'd like to say about it.
No, I think it's a different country when we can't compare South Africa and Zimbabwe, because you can't get the challenges like here we have the likes of Julius Malema, Motsmai Mani. You can't get someone else like Julius Malema in Zimbabwe.
But why?
No, you find it hard to get someone like that.
But why not, I guess, is the question that's lingering on our minds. Why can't we? We understand the complications in Zimbabwe, but, why really?
I can't answer that question, because even I myself, I can't even prove myself to go in that position like how much my money is doing in South Africa.
It's understandable.
You can't face the challenge like how did you do it in South Africa. Even today, if you see the way they was doing here in South Africa, we can't even do ourselves there in Zimbabwe.
Thank you, Kenneth.
Kenneth,
thank you so much.
Thank you. He's echoing
yeah,
what Beatrice just said.
I agree that, South Africa is South Africa and Zimbabwe is Zimbabwe, but at times I think, I'm seeing more defiance from the youth in South Africa. Look at what's happening in Parliament.
Daily.
You look at what's happening in the streets. Of course, I understand, what Beatrice is saying, that in Zimbabwe it's a different culture altogether. You have youth who are very afraid, who are very cautious. As we speak, Itai Zamara is missing, and even the government, which should know where he is it can't account for him. So, really, I understand where our guests come from, but now we have Bajila. I hope we can talk to him now.
Exactly. I hope we can get him on the line quickly. Bajila, are you on the line?
Yes, I'm on the line.
Thank you so much. So we're trying to unpack the question, which I guess might be simple, as our other guests are saying. But, the question of why Zimbabwe can seem to find itself a youthful leader or have a youthful leader leading a political party.
Well, I think the first question is the what we call the idea and the problem that is generally becoming prevalent in Zimbabwe. You have for that once they found and they become founder leaders of political movements in Zimbabwe, or they become movements of political organizations at very defining moments, they don't want to leave. You ask yourself, even from the likes of Tinemu Nenzwa, they've been there, Paul Suela, you mentioned even the likes of Morgan Tsvangirai, Mugabe, they've all been there and they don't want to leave. And therefore, young people get this feeling that says there is no spaces for us in politics. Let's go and do these others. And therefore, those who brought this thing, those who have fought for democracy, those who have fought.
Hello.
Bajila's phone again is a nightmare. Anyway, we've run out of time, and we'll have to say goodnight to Bajila. Let's wrap things up with our other guests.
Yes, definitely. I'll start off with you, Hillary. Just your last word in about 30 seconds, looking at this day and what we've discussed on the program this evening.
I think my last word will be, we've got a new constitution in Zimbabwe. Let us see the full implementation of this constitution. We are still operating in the era of the old constitution. If this new constitution can be implemented to the letter, I think also freedom of expression, freedom of movement, and all these other inhibitors can be removed, and we'll see youth participating more freely in a number of discourses in our country.
Thank you so much.
Beatrice, your last word in short, 30 seconds.
My last word is to the government to fix the economy. It's messing up a lot of things. So if they manage to fix the economy, we're going to address a lot of things, including child marriage, which is the theme for this year's Day of the African Child.
Thank you so very much there. That was Beatrice Sawajge, Director of Roots, Real Opportunities for Transformation Support in Harare. We also heard from Hilary Musarurwa, Director of Penya, Practical Empowerment and Networking Youth Association. And thanks also to Decent Bajila, who is the Youth Secretary for MDC Formation of Professor Walshben Ngube. But no thanks to his phone, as he seemed to not have a chance to get into the program as much as we would have liked. But thank you.
And we've run out of time, and we'll have to leave it there. On this day, June 16, we wish you all, young people, happy June 16.
Happy Africa Day to everyone out there. I'm Tatenda Gumbo, hoping you will join us again next Tuesday.
And I'm Tungamili Nkomo. Good night, Zimbabwe.